I'm D. Elliott Woods, and you're listening to my man Steve Owens host the greatest podcast in the universe, Fascination Street. Let's get it.
Yeah! AV in your ears, that's Ambush Van giving you this audio visual down the most interesting street in the world with my boy Steve, Fascination Street. You already know. Let's get it. When you whip in the Fascination Street, what do you...
Welcome back, Streetwalkers. This episode is with Aaron Marcus. Aaron is a professional actor who has been acting for decades. I won't say how many because that's rude. Aaron has been in such phenomenal hit programs as Gotham, Mr. Robot, House of Cards, Halt and Catch Fire, Rectify, Homicide: Life on the Streets, Law and Order, West Wing, and the all-time best television show that has ever graced the small screen, The Wire. Aaron is also the author of 2 books, How to Become a Successful Commercial Model and How to Become a Successful Actor and Model. He also gives workshops. He's given over 800 workshops all over the world, various topics and subjects. This guy is amazing. In this episode, we talk about how he came to be an actor. It's a little bit unusual. We do talk about some of the things he was in. We trade fun stories about auditioning for things, and we generally have a fantastic time. Aaron is a lot of fun. He's easy to talk with. He's fun to listen to, and he gives so much information and knowledge to people who want to become an actor, to people who want to become a model, to people who just want to be a better person, actually. So I think you're going to dig it. Go check out all of his things. And this is my conversation with author, actor, model, and teacher, Aaron Marcus.
Prepare to be fascinated. Prepare to be fascinated. Prepare to be fascinated.
Well, welcome to Fascination Street Podcast, Aaron Marcus. How you doing today, man?
Hey, I'm doing great. Thanks.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Aaron Marcus. He is an actor. He is a model. Oh, we'll talk about them sexy times in a minute. Also, he's an author. He has written a couple of books, which we're going to talk about in just a little bit. But first, Aaron, what I like to do is I like to start from the beginning. It helps us understand how the guests got from where they were to where they are. So where were you born and raised, man? Where'd you grow up?
I was born in Baltimore, Maryland. Go Ravens.
We say Balmer.
How do you know about Balmer?
Oh, we'll get there in a minute, but go ahead.
Okay. And so I grew up here, and it's not best for business, but I decided to stay here. My wife is actually from New Jersey, right outside of New York. It certainly would have made a lot more sense.
Where at in New Jersey?
There is a small town called Tenafly in Bergen County. It's a suburb of New York. We just decided that work-wise, it wouldn't be best for me to stay in Baltimore, but life-wise, it would. So we just decided that we wanted to stay, and we were able to have a house and some land, which you're not going to get in New York City.
That's true.
So that's what we've done. And I've always lived here. My bed is here. And so I have to commute a lot for work.
That makes sense. My wife and I have been to New York several times, but every single time, because we're not just made of money, we stay in New Jersey and then go into the city. I've said it multiple times on this show, probably like 50 or more, but I would just like to say it one more time. The best pizza in New York is in New Jersey. Rahway, New Jersey has the most amazing pizza.
Is that by the prison there? There's a big Rahway prison, right?
Yeah, there might even be 2 prisons in Rahway, but yeah, it's actually basically across the street from the train station in Rahway. It's called Nancy's Townhouse, and it is the best pizza I've ever had. I've been all over the world. It's the best pizza I've ever had, or pie, as they say up there. Okay, so the reason that I know we say Balmer is because of some of the things that you have been on. As an actor, I'm telling you like you don't know your resume, but Streetwalkers, Aaron has been in such phenomenal television programs as Gotham, Mr. Robot, House of Cards, Halt and Catch Fire, Rectify, Law and Order, West Wing, and the 2 coolest things besides Aaron to come out of Baltimore, Homicide: Life on the Street, which previous guest of the show, Reed Diamond, was a big part of that show.
Oh, wow.
And the best show that has ever graced anyone's television set ever.
It's got to be The Wire.
The Wire.
You know what? I feel the same way.
It is 100% amazing. It's equal parts amazing and outstanding, and both of those equal parts are 100%. So figure that math out.
And disturbing all at the same time. And I know we're not going to do, this is not about reviewing television shows, but I tell you, one of the things that I loved about The Wire was that it wasn't drug dealers against cops and it was allowing people to see people as people. It was revolutionary. David Simon, who also did Homicide: Life on the Streets, it was powerful. And I've watched it numerous times. It still stands up. It still speaks to what's going on today.
Yep.
It's just really smart. So if anybody has not seen it, and look, it's not for everybody, but if you have HBO and you're interested, The Wire, it is powerful. And the actors on that show were just unbelievable.
So The Wire is the first place that I saw Andre Braugher, who was also in Homicide: Life on the Streets.
But I don't think he was in The Wire, though.
I feel like he was in the very, very last season.
Was it Andre?
Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong.
Well, Andre Braugher, and I was so sad to hear about his recent death. He was phenomenal. And I was so fortunate I had a chance to have a scene with him in Homicide: Life on the Street.
Oh, sweet.
And he did so many different things. Brooklyn Nine-Nine, which is like crazy, is so different from everything else he's ever done. But he was just a very, very powerful person. But I don't know. I know we keep going back to The Wire. The actors, Idris Elba, I mean, you could just kind of go down the list.
That was the first time I ever saw Idris Elba.
Oh.
Ever.
Oh, my gosh.
And you're right. My apologies. Andre Braugher was not in The Wire. You are correct. But we're not here to point out my mistakes, bro. I don't know what you're thinking. Okay, so you're growing up in Baltimore. What was the plan? What did you want to be when you grew up?
Well, I'm still trying to figure that one out.
You're also still trying to grow up.
You're not kidding.
You play for a living.
I do. Yeah, you're right. I have a very different kind of background for acting than most people. A lot of people that I know who are in the business, they knew from a very young age, this is what they wanted to do. They went to, see a play or a movie and they knew this was it for me. I kind of did things backwards, kind of like Frank Zappa, who was actually born in Baltimore. He used to record albums and then he would practice the material afterwards. And it's kind of what I did with acting. The short version is I actually became a musician. I studied music in school for a couple of years, and my brother and I were performing, writing songs. We were songwriters, and we decided to do music full time. We did that for 7 years, and I dropped out of college, and my brother decided after 7 years he didn't like touring. And he didn't like performing. Not good for musicians.
It really sounds like he didn't like you.
You know what? You might be right. He gave me a year's notice to kind of figure out what I wanted to do because I was already older at this point. I was like, 28, 29. It's not like I was a kid. And he went back to being a psychotherapist. And I'm kind of like searching. And I decided after doing a lot of soul searching and a lot of volunteering in hospitals, I wanted to be a physical therapist and spent 300 hours volunteering, shadowing orthopedists and grabbing, hot towels for patients in physical therapy departments. And I needed a part-time job. And I met an actor. He did mostly TV commercials and he told me what he did, what it was like, and just kind of filled me in because I didn't have any kind of acting background. And I just thought, sounds like a great part-time job. Sounded like it was fun. When you worked, you got paid well.
Yeah, that was back in the day when commercials really, really, really brought in the money.
And you could actually be just a regular actor and not be a star and get TV commercials, which, as you know, has changed quite a bit, especially for Super Bowl ads. So I started doing it on a part-time basis. So for me, it was just a way to make some money while I was a full-time college student because I went back to school and I started taking all the classes that I avoided all my life, all the sciences. And all of a sudden, I started realizing I'm really enjoying this. Honestly, I started having dreams of being a very successful physical therapist because I was making these great connections and being very unhappy and kind of bored in my life. So right before I got married, I told my fiance at the time, you know what? I know you were planning on marrying a guy who was going to be in physical therapy school. I want to try acting for a year. just to see what it's like, to see if I could work, to see if I still enjoyed it, to see if I could stomach being self-employed, which that part I thought I could because I was a musician for 7 years. That's turned into 39 plus years.
So after you told your fiance to be that you were going to become an actor, that you were going to try this acting thing, how long did it take you to find another girlfriend?
Hey, you know what? We're still married. She was great. She just said, look, it's not what I want, because she was a teacher. And so she liked really steady things in her life, knowing when she was working, how much she was making. That's just her thing. And she said to me, she said, look, if I put my foot down and say, this is not going, she said, then we would never get married. And so that's what happened. No, she was great. So I also, like Frank Zappa, did things backwards. I started working in the industry for a couple of years part-time while I was a student. And then I decided, you know what, if I really want to pursue this, I better really learn what I'm doing and not just go by instincts, because your instincts can only take you so far. So if I'm doing an audition or a scene and I'm just not feeling it in the moment, I better have some techniques to use so that I can really get to the place that I need to get to. So that's what I started doing. So I started working full time, and then I decided, hey, I better start studying. So I started taking classes, working with people privately, and that's kind of my background. And so I've always lived here. And there was a time period where the Baltimore, DC, Northern Virginia market was really good. It wasn't New York, it wasn't LA, but like you had mentioned, some of the TV shows that came here, like The Wire, just tons of movies that came to town. Barry Levinson was shooting here. There were all different kinds of projects that were taking place. Then I slowly start moving into other markets. Like I decided, okay, I think I'm ready for Philly. So I jumped into Philly, started auditioning and working there. Then I went to New Jersey. And then after 4 years, I felt like I was ready. That's when I decided to hit New York.
And you hit New York because it's way closer than Los Angeles.
Yeah. And I tell you, I know you didn't ask this, but I think people would be interested. I can't tell you how many people were telling me, local people were telling me, don't even bother with New York. Look, you live in Baltimore. You really think they need this kid from Baltimore? They have 10 million actors who are trying to break in every single day in New York City. And they said, look, I don't want you to get your heart broken. It's going to be tough. It's not going to happen. And I thank them very much for being concerned about my cardiac situation. But I knew that I could live with attempting to break into New York and not succeeding. Not getting an agent, never working there, not getting any auditions. I wouldn't be happy, but I could live with that. What I couldn't live with was not trying. And that's kind of been my philosophy with everything that I do. And what I learned is that there are people out there who don't want to see you succeed in whatever you're doing in life. It's not necessarily because they really care that much. They're jealous. They don't want to see other people do things that they aren't capable and have the courage to try. So it was a really interesting and helpful lesson to me. And yeah, like you were saying, as opposed to LA, New York, I could commute, and I did, and I still do. Since 1989, I've been commuting to New York. It's not easy, but I can do it. If there's anything positive about COVID, now we're shooting home auditions, and I don't have to make, that trip up to New York, and spend literally all day doing it for a 2-minute audition. Or if it's a commercial modeling audition, modeling for regular looking people, where they're seeing, 100 people who all kind of look like me, I don't have to make that trip anymore. I can just shoot it at home and send it up.
Back in the day when you started acting, you said that you just started. You're like, hey, I'm going to give it a shot. And you just started. So this was before the internet. This is before the web. How does someone, especially like you keep saying 1989, like how does someone in the 80s even find auditions?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So the actor who I met, he told me about one agency, a local agency. And it was an interesting story. I went to the agency because at that time period, you could just knock on the door, walk in. And I will never forget, the agent said, oh, it's nice to meet you. So tell me, what TV shows have you done? What commercials have you done? What movies have you been in? And I looked at her and I said, none. And she said, well, it's nice to meet you, but we only work with people who've had some experience. So thank you very much for stopping in. I said, okay, I understood it. And I was walking out and she said, hey, you know what? While you're here, let me give you some copy to read. And let's see. I had no idea that copy meant the words for a TV commercial. So she handed it to me and I did have enough sense to say, oh, okay, great. Can I go out in the hallway and just look this over first? And she said, yeah, of course, take your time. So I went out there and I'm looking at it. And when I felt like I was ready, I came back and I read and she said, hey, I liked it. Go out and get a headshot and let's talk. I didn't know what a headshot was. So I asked her, I said, well, who do you have any recommendations? She gave me the names of a couple of photographers to go to. And that's what I did. And I met a photographer. I had no idea what I was doing. And that's why, and you had mentioned about my acting, I also help people get started in the industry. I do a lot of private mentoring. And that's one of the things that we talk about is how to put together an effective headshot. So I went into the studio and I said, what do I do? And he said, well, just make faces. And he, took 200, 300 pictures of me making different faces. And it was a horrible session. There was one photo out of all of them that, it was maybe usable. And I brought it back to the agent. She said, yeah, let's get started.
Please tell me that one photo was you dressed up like a fireman or a cowboy or a construction worker.
No, it was just me kind of smiling and it was a little quirky. And because once again, I had no idea. I didn't know how to prepare. I didn't know what kind of wardrobe to wear. I didn't know that I should be putting together something that fits my character, how I'm going to be cast. None of that. And look, for anybody who is getting started, yes, there are ways that you can try to find work on your own. You can try to market yourself. You can contact advertising agents. Once again, once you've got a headshot and a resume and or commercial shots, if you're interested in commercial modeling work, but you can contact art and creative directors at ad agencies because sometimes they are the ones who hire the commercial model or have final decision over the actor for the TV spot or radio spot. Sometimes it's a joint meeting with the client or other people. So that is one way. You can contact commercial photographers locally and reach out to them directly. You can go to your film commission website to see if there are any projects coming to town. But ultimately, the best way to get work and to make sure that it's legitimate is to have an agent. And by the way, there are also some companies, places like Actors Access and Casting Networks and 800 Casting. I know Backstage has stuff where you can sign up, you pay a fee, and you will be sent information about projects that are happening in your area. But ultimately, the best way is to have an agent because they will know what is legitimate. They will be able to submit you. They will hear about many more local projects than you will find out about. And they know how to price you properly. They know what the going rate is so you don't get ripped off.
Oh, nice. Probably definitely back in the 80s. There was a movie coming to town, to film here in San Antonio. It was downtown. Are you familiar with the film E.T.?
I think I've heard those initials before. Yeah.
Okay. So E.T. the Extraterrestrial starred a young Henry Thomas who lived here in San Antonio.
Oh, wow.
And his very next movie was called Cloak and Dagger. And it starred him and Dabney Coleman and an early William Forsythe. He was credited as Bill back then.
Wow.
And so that movie was coming to town to be made. And my dad always had dreams of being an actor himself. So he took my sister and I to an audition. So it was an audition to play some of Henry Thomas's characters' friends. So it was just a bunch of little kids, like 8, 9 years old, whatever it was, 7, 8, whatever the age was. So me and my sister went to this audition and it was a big hotel downtown and there was thousands of kids there. I mean, can you imagine, right? Being in Henry Thomas's next movie. So there was thousands of kids and it was one of the worst experiences I've ever had just because I feel like there wasn't enough adults. And so they were pretty frazzled. And so they were just screaming and yelling at all the kids. That's the only time I've ever auditioned for anything. And it left such a terrible taste in my mouth that I was like, nah, this ain't for me. Tell me about your best experience at one of those cattle call group auditions. Yeah.
It was a commercial modeling job and it was in New York. It was a big job. So I go up to New York for this. They call them Go-Sees, which is an audition for models. Essentially, you go in and, they take a couple of shots. At that time period, there was something called Polaroid cameras, and they would take still pictures of you. I get to this photographer's studio, and I'm not exaggerating. The line was so long. It went out the studio, out into the street, down like 3 blocks. And we're just standing there. I'm looking at the people around me. The guys were incredibly handsome. The women were just beautiful. And I'm thinking, what in the world was my agent thinking? Why am I here? And people were talking about, oh, yeah, I just worked with this director. Oh, we shot in South America. And I'm sitting there thinking, well, let's see, I just did a hemorrhoid cream ad. Once again, what am I doing here? And so finally, and this was hours. So one of the nice things about the union, SAG-AFTRA, is that typically you are going to be given a specific time for your audition, and they cannot keep you there longer than an hour. If they do, you can actually file a complaint and you will get paid. Now, I don't know how many people actually do that because that's probably not a good business move, but at least it's on the books and they do try to get you through.
Probably not a good business move, yeah.
No, I've never done that. But for commercial modeling, there is no union. So it was hours of just standing there. Here's the interesting thing. I knew it was an outdoor shoot. That's pretty much all I knew. I knew what it was for. It was outdoors. And I also knew they were shooting in 3 different locations. They were hiring a husband and wife. One shot was going to be in Dallas. One shot was going to be in New York. And I'll tell you where the third one was in a second. It's outdoors. I went in there, and for this one, it was unusual. Every once in a while, this would happen. They would actually videotape you for this modeling Go-See. I heard the people in front of me because I was standing by the door. They said, oh, so what have you done recently? That's what they were asking. And people were giving out their resume. Well, I worked on this, worked on that. And I just decided, first of all, I don't have this job. Second of all, there's nothing I'm going to say about a job that I did that's going to really impress people more than what these other people are saying. So I decided I'm not going to talk about work. I knew it was an outdoor shoot. So what have you done lately? I just talked about outdoor things. Well, I went camping with my family. That's all I talked about. And I'll never forget when my agent called. It was about 4 days later. And she said, hey, got some good news. And I'll never forget. I was in my living room. I said, Eileen, I said, you're not kidding, are you? And she said, nope, I wouldn't do that. I said, am I working in New York? She said, nope. I said, am I working in Dallas? She said, no. I said, you're serious? She said, absolutely. I was flown to Hawaii to do this modeling job. And on a little bit of a just side note, because you asked, and I think it's an interesting story.
No, it's not. No, it's a what? It's a what story?
Oh, fascinating story.
There you go.
Sorry. The woman who played my wife lived in New York. So I'd travel up to New York because we were flying out of, I can't remember, it was Kennedy or LaGuardia to go to Hawaii. And it was like a 9 a.m. flight. So I flew up the night before just to make sure I didn't miss the flight. The model who was working with me, who was playing my wife, she sat next to me the entire 11 hours. All she did was complain. Do you know what time I had to wake up for this 9 a.m. flight? Really, they couldn't get something early afternoon. And that's all she did for 11 hours. And she continued to do this. After we landed, she's talking to, the people from the ad agency and the clients, just complaining. And what even just about the plane, just complaining about, she's hungry, just everything. And let me tell you, for that job, so here we are, husband and wife, we're traveling the world. We are in love. We're having this great time. There are volcanoes in the background. That might have been the greatest acting job of my life, to show this love as I have my arm around this woman who I couldn't stand to be around. That I think I should have gotten an Oscar for.
The greatest performance ever.
Greatest performance ever.
Do you remember what the product was?
Yeah, it was a German cigarette. I don't remember the name of it, but it was out of Germany and it was a German cigarette. And, it's interesting. Once again, you didn't ask this, but I love how we're just kind of just sharing information here. So I'm not a smoker. I don't care if people smoke. I just don't want to breathe it in. That's all. I'm not crazy about supporting cigarettes. So here's what I thought, because I have turned down very few jobs. I've done like almost 1,300 jobs. I think I've turned down 5 or 6. And here's what I decided to do. I really didn't want to support people smoking, but I figured these people aren't going to cancel their ad campaign, this worldwide ad campaign, because I said no to it. So here's what I did. And this was my way of justifying doing it. I decided I'm going to do the job, and I'm going to take some of the money that I got from this project and donate it to the Cancer Society. I kind of figured that's the way that I can comfortably do this thing.
That's the way you can sleep at night.
Yeah. And like I said, there have been some things that I've turned down just because I did not want to be a part of it. But that one I did. But yeah, it was a cigarette. I mean, I remember doing one for Winston, which normally you wouldn't think of a guy like me doing Winston cigarettes. But yeah, I got cast for that one too.
A friend of mine was struggling with a role. He was like, Dad, I don't really know if I should take this role. It doesn't feel right. Kind of like you were having concerns with the cigarette ad. He's like, well, I don't really feel comfortable with this. It's not my thing. And his dad said, look, somebody is going to get hired for this role. Somebody is going to get paid to do this. Why not you? This doesn't speak to your character. This doesn't speak to your ethics. This speaks to your work ethic. So why shouldn't it be you? I think that's fantastic advice. I love what you did to make yourself feel better about taking that role. That's really, really cool too.
Hey, Streetwalkers, here's a word from our sponsors. Let's get back into it.
You mentioned once or twice commercial modeling. Please explain to the listeners, what is commercial modeling? It's not necessarily modeling in commercials, but, and go.
Okay. So there's 2 types of modeling. You've got fashion modeling.
Yeah, that's me. That's what I do. That's my that's my day job. Yeah. I'm a
Absolutely.
fashion
I
model.
see you doing the catwalk all the time.
I'm too sexy for a catwalk.
So fashion models are very tall. Women are going to be between 5'9" and 6 feet tall. Guys are going to be 6 feet to 6 feet 2. Yes, there are a few exceptions to the rule. Men are going to have a 40 jacket. Women are going to be 34, 24, 34. And still, even if you have those statistics, you have to have a very specific look. In every fashion agency has different desires. Some want the more heroin addict look.
Heroin chic, they used to say.
Yes. And some want, a little bit more wholesome. And what you do is your job, and I don't mean this in a disparaging way, you are a walking coat hanger. It is your job to make the designer's samples look interesting as you're walking down a runway. That's your job. Now, there's a whole other world of modeling out there, and there's a lot more work available for commercial modeling than fashion modeling, but most people don't know about it. Sometimes the gorgeous women who might be in Gap catalogs or really handsome guys doing ads, and these are print ads. These are ads in magazines, newspapers, brochures, direct mail pieces on the boxes of a product. It could be for, a Rolex watch, and it comes in a package and you see a commercial model on it. And there are people like me who kind of look like your family's proctologist.
Well, hold on now. Why would you share a proctologist?
I shouldn't disparage the proctologist. Okay, I take that one back. I take that back. They could just be like everybody's next door neighbor. How's that one? And the nice thing with commercial modeling, besides the fact that they need everybody, people who have great bodies, if you're going to be in, men's health catalogs or magazines, or you're overweight and maybe it's some kind of food vitamin product. Also, there are no age restrictions. Like in the fashion world for women, if you're over 21 and you haven't already made it, not to say it's impossible, it's going to be really tough. People have already made it by that point. Commercial models, I've worked with kids who are 3 months old. I've worked with people in their 80s. And so they need everybody. That's really what commercial modeling is all about. I love doing commercial modeling work because I get a chance to use my acting skills and I don't have to memorize any lines. They just want to see different kinds of expressions and emotions in a believable way. So yeah, I love doing commercial modeling work, and I've done hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of these things.
Love it. Now, I have had Victoria's Secret models on the show. I have had Maxim swimsuit models on the show. I'm so happy to say that I've got another Maxim model on the show. Tell me about your Maxim photo shoot, you sexy, sexy beast.
So there was an article in Maxim magazine. There's something called an editorial.
There's articles in Maxim. I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
You must have skipped those. There's something called editorial work. Those are pictures that are either on the front cover of a magazine or it's a photograph that goes along with an article in a magazine. And the reason why magazines do this is because they don't get any money for it. It's not like an ad, but they shoot editorials because they know that their subscribers like looking at pictures, just like you mentioned, Steve. So there was an article in Maxim about how long do men live. It was a very interesting article, and they talked about exercise and sleep habits and how much you drink and all that kind of stuff. So I was the funeral home director, and I am sizing people up, and it's a very eerie and kind of scary looking shot. But that's how I ended up in Maxim magazine.
I have done very few, very specific commercial modeling gigs. I am usually the before picture for, let's just say, Rogaine or Nutrisystem. I'm just kidding.
You have a good commercial modeling look. Absolutely.
Oh, hey, thanks, man. Have your people call my people.
I'm being very serious. There are a lot of different roles.
Wow, I need to get some people. We're going to jump around a little bit, but you were only in one play in high school, and it was a small role. So when was it that you knew that you could support yourself and your family with acting? I mean, it wasn't like a lifelong dream. It was kind of a spur of the moment. All of a sudden, what else am I going to do? I'll try this thing.
Right. It was just a means to make a living while I was a full-time college student. And at that point, I was still living in my parents' place. So I just needed some, extra money for things. It's not like I was paying rent or having to pay school loans or anything like that. I never really knew. I just wanted to take a shot and try it out. So that was that 1 year time period where I said, I'm going to give myself a year and let me see what it's like doing it full time. I can tell you that most actors I know do not do this full time. They have other jobs. Maybe they're full-time students and they periodically take a day off and do a job. Because look, even for someone that does it full time, it's not like I'm booked on a set every day. It might be once a month. It might be a couple times a month. And now that I'm doing, and everybody's pretty much doing auditions from home, even if you have a full-time job, you can always shoot the audition from home. And then if you book it, you take a day off, you take a day of vacation, or maybe you have a job where you can, get the work done whenever you need to get the work done and still do the job. So, for most people, I just tell them, don't even worry about the full-time aspect of it. If it happens, it's great. Look, if you get to a point where you got a full-time job and you happen to be working so much that it's interfering with your daytime job, well, then that's great. Then you can make a decision. But, most people just aren't, in that kind of situation to be able to do that.
When did you know you could pay your bills with acting? What was the turning point?
Well, after my first year.
Really? After your first year?
I wasn't making a tremendous amount, but it was enough to pay my bills. And it is interesting. I mean, as I've gotten older and done this longer, I also have some additional income from, I've done over 800 workshops, traveled 3 continents doing these things. So I'm able to also supplement some income, outside of just acting or voiceover or commercial modeling work. That's been really a lot of fun for me as well, just sharing information and teaching people about the realities of the industry.
Tell me more about the workshops. Who are they geared towards, and what would the people who go to these workshops or attend these workshops, what do they gain? What are you teaching?
It's a good question, but it's a complicated one because every workshop's going to be different. I've had workshops for people, and sometimes it's a combination of people who are thinking about getting started in the industry and they're clueless, as they should be. They have no idea what they need to do to get started. I didn't. When I first started, and how would you know? You're starting a new business. I've had people who worked on Broadway attend my workshops because they've always done theater and they want to branch out because they know that, once that show ends, they're unemployed. And so they want to learn about commercial modeling. They want to learn about TV commercials. They want to learn about film and television because, look, great actors are great actors, but you use different techniques depending on the medium. And so now, just because I'm not traveling quite as much doing in-person workshops, I do virtual workshops. So I have 22 different topics ranging from everything you need to know about SAG-AFTRA, the Actors Union, to 20 things that casting directors hate, to how to put together an effective headshot, how to market yourself and get work on your own, how to find an agent and make sure you're not getting ripped off. Depending on the topic, I might get different people, but quite often it's people who are, getting started or people who've been doing this work for a while, but they feel stuck and they feel like they want to take their career to the next level. And what happens for a lot of people, they're not having the success that they want. And it's not due to their skills, it's due to lack of information. Because if you don't know how to create the right kinds of headshots that industry professionals expect, or put together a resume that is desired by industry professionals, then when you submit your headshot and resume and casting directors are looking at it to decide on who they're going to invite to audition for a project, you're not going to be considered. You could be the greatest actor in the world, but if the headshot just doesn't look right and your resume, you've got all kinds of information in there that you shouldn't have, and information that you should have, you don't, you're not going to have success. So it's complicated, but it's really for anybody in the industry who wants to either break in or have more success.
That might be the thing that has held me back the most. When I went to do headshots, I grabbed my buddy and his iPhone and I went down and I found a construction worker and I said, "Hey, let me hold that jackhammer for a second while my buddy takes a picture." And then I went to a fireman and I said, "Hey, let me climb on the back of that truck while my friend takes that picture." And then I went to a cop and I said, "Hey, let me hold your gun for a second." And then I got arrested. I think explaining to people what a good headshot is and how to get them is probably a pretty good start.
Some of the ideas that you were talking about are actually interesting ideas, not for a headshot, but if you are interested in commercial modeling, if you're fascinated by commercial modeling, here's one little tip that will be invaluable to you. Instead of doing what everybody does and what I did when I first started, and you want to portray yourself as a business person. So you're wearing business attire, you're holding a cell phone in your hand, and you're just smiling. Okay, so I get it. But what you really want to do is make every shot that you take look like an ad. You want somebody to look at that commercial photo and say, "Oh, that could be an ad for this product, or this product." You want to show a variety of expressions and emotions. Like, for instance, people always try to look beautiful in their commercial photos. Once again, this is different than headshots. But for commercial modeling, instead of trying to just look beautiful in every shot or really handsome in every shot, you want to think about where is the work, the majority of the work in today's time period for commercial models. A lot of it is pharmaceutical work. So you definitely want to have one shot where you look miserable, you look horrible, you've got this horrible migraine, your stomach is upset, your allergies are kicking in. And when you can show that in a believable way, and now you're thinking, oh, this could be an ad for, an ER, it could be an ad for some kind of prescription, some kind of medication. And then you have a shot where you look great. You are showing the commercial photographers, the people at the ad agencies, you've got a wide variety of expressions and emotions. It's not that deadpan smile, look after look after look after look. It makes it much, much more interesting. That probably took me 7 or 8 years to figure out, but it's really invaluable information and it's fascinating information.
I also would like to throw out, everybody, when you're doing those different shots, go ahead and take a shot where you look very surprised, like you just pooped in your pants.
Hey, there are ads for Depends, and so that might work.
You gave us that tip, which is fantastic, but you have a channel where you give acting and modeling quick tips, and it's free. Tell me about that.
It's great. Look, this is my way of giving back to the community. And I have it's an acting and modeling quick tips channel. There are over 400 free quick tip videos.
Wow.
My goal there is to build a community of actors and or models who learn from each other, respond to questions I might ask in the quick tip videos. Have you ever experienced one of the recent ones? I never should have booked this job. And actually, it was another David Simon project. It was called We Own This City. I never should have booked it, and I did. And so I explained how, why, and then I also mentioned, hey, have you ever booked something that you never thought you were going to get? And people would respond to that. So it's my way of giving back to the community and helping to build a place where actors and models can go to share information, learn from each other. And I know that sometimes actors are hesitant about giving out information because they're concerned. Hey, if I teach you, like what I just mentioned to you, to everybody about, how to put together a powerful commercial modeling shot. Well, somebody might take that, put a great shot together, and then they might book the job and I might not get it. That is possible. Just like when I do workshops or private, mentoring sessions. Yeah, you might book the job and I might not get it if we're submitted for the same thing. And my thought is, that's okay, because that meant the job was meant for you, not for me. So I've always, well, I shouldn't say always, it took me a while, but for many, many, many years, I truly believe that we are not competing with each other, that we all bring something unique to the table. We bring something through our life experiences that nobody else has had. Even if we look very similar, it's going to be different. And so I stopped that concept of competing. And I like to surround myself with like-minded people who want to share and help each other. So that's why I have the chat. And actually, I don't know if you're going to be posting the link. It's kind of a long link, but an easy way to get to it is if you go to my website, just howtoactandmodel.com, there's a YouTube icon there. Just click on that. You can go there, subscribe, click the notification bell so you always know when I upload a new video, and please share it. Share the link with other people.
Absolutely.
Hey, Streetwalkers, here's a word from our sponsors.
Introducing Loom Stupid, where fashion meets quirkiness. Whether you're looking for statement tees that spark conversations or funky pieces that add whimsy to your outfit, Loom Stupid has got you covered. Join the fashion revolution and express your unique style with Loom Stupid. Visit our exclusive website at www.loomstupid.com and discover a world of fashion that's brilliantly bizarre and undeniably chic. New designs are being added all the time. Loomstupid.com. Get your whimsy on with Loom Stupid, because being silly is the new stylish.
Let's get back into it.
You also wrote 2 books. One, How to Become a Successful Commercial Model. And then the other one is very similar in title, but it's different in scope. How to Become a Successful Actor and Model. Why did you feel the need to write those books? Who are they for?
Man, you asked some really good questions. So many, many, many years ago, an agent in Richmond, Virginia, who I worked with, called me and she said, look, I know you get a lot of commercial modeling work. I have a lot of actors down here who would really like to get into commercial modeling. They just don't know how to go about doing it. And as an agent, that's not her job to sit there and, give lessons to these people. She said, would you mind coming down, spend an hour and just talk to people? I said, sure. I wasn't getting paid anything for it, but she was really nice.
It never hurts to do an agent a favor.
It doesn't. It doesn't. I know sometimes people say, well, it's good karma, it will come around. I never really think in that way. I'm not thinking about getting something back from it. I like the concept of helping other people. And once again, I like to help people who I also like. So went down there, gave the talk. It was great. And actually, that was kind of like the beginning of how I started doing workshops. And that 1 hour talk turned into a 2 hour talk, turned into a 3 hour and a full day workshop and all that. But people start contacting me and they started asking me questions. And I was more than happy to answer them, but I started finding that I just didn't have the time to spend giving people everything that I wanted to. So I thought, you know what, maybe I should write a book. And that way people will be able to learn everything that I want to give them in their own time. So that's where How to Become a Successful Commercial Model came about. That went through, I think it's like 6 different editions. I would update it. And then it got to a point where the industry changed so drastically with commercial modeling that it just became outdated. And I also thought, you know what, I really want to add a lot more of the acting component to the book. And that's how to Become a Successful Actor and Model came about. And it's really helpful. It's great for people who want to get started. Once again, just like, the private sessions, people who've been working for a while but want to jump to the next level, and even the more experienced people who just don't have some of the information that they need to have. So it's a really, really helpful book. And yeah, you can find it on my website or also on Amazon.
Love it. Has anybody told you that you have very Michael Gross vibes?
That's interesting. I have heard that. The other person that I hear some similarities to, I booked a Super Bowl ad. It was a number of years ago. It was a Coca-Cola ad because the director of the TV spot said, you know what, you kind of remind me of a young James Cromwell who was in 6 Feet Under. He was in Babe.
He was in Succession very recently.
Yeah. I've also heard a young Alan Alda.
I can see the Alan Alda also.
I also heard Pee Wee Herman.
I'd put all my money on you could have been on Family Ties.
Well, I'm glad you like the Alan Alda more than the Pee Wee Herman.
Much like Jason Alexander and John Hamm, you have a wonderful story about auditioning for House of Cards 15 times. What?
So over a 2-year period, I auditioned for House of Cards, which I believe this is true. It was the very first streaming television show series ever.
That's not true, but I understand.
Oh, which was the first?
So the very first one was called Lilyhammer, and it was acquired by Netflix to be the first streaming show on their platform. It starred the guitar player for Bruce Springsteen's E Street Band.
Right. Oh, I didn't know that was the first one.
That was the very first one, and Netflix bought it. It was already made for a Norwegian audience, but Netflix bought it to throw on their platform. House of Cards was the first one that Netflix paid to have made.
Oh, I see. Okay. Well, thank you for clarifying. That's fascinating. So, yeah, Netflix put up enough money for 2 seasons. There were no pilots shot for it. So I was auditioning, and 14 auditions. I kept getting called back. Sometimes I wouldn't get a call back, meaning that they liked the initial audition. They wanted me to read again. Sometimes I was asked about dates. Those things never came through. And for the 15th audition, ultimately, who knows? But I asked a question during the audition. And this is one of the things that I do miss by doing home auditions. You can't ask a casting director during the audition any kind of questions. And I'm reading with a reader, but the character is someone who had not been on the show because I was very familiar with it. I loved the first 4 seasons of that show. That was a powerful show, really interesting. This character hadn't been on the show before. I knew that it was an important character, so I asked the casting director, what is my relationship with this character in the show? And she said, you work for her. And my eyes just opened up and I thought, oh, okay, because that completely changed the way I was going to read, because I could have read it in a million different ways. She's my boss. She's who I work for. And after the 15th audition, I booked a reoccurring role. And it was Ellen Burstyn, and she played Robin Wright's mother. So she was the mother of the wife of the president at the time. It was just an incredible experience. The casting director, she would have me come in and read, but she wanted something a little bit better for me because they apparently, they liked what I was doing. Just on a little bit of a side note, sometimes actors get really angry because They keep getting called in. They keep auditioning with the same casting director. Maybe it's for a different project, doesn't matter. And they'll start saying, like, I've already auditioned with this person 2 or 3 times or 4 times. Apparently they don't want me. I don't know why they're bothering. I don't want to do this. What people don't understand is a casting director isn't going to bring you in a second time unless they really liked your audition.
It's a second date.
It is. You're 100% right. And you're not going to go out on that second date unless the first one was good. So for this one, they kept bringing me back. And for whatever reason, I didn't fit the wardrobe perfectly. I wasn't the right person. But this 15th one, I was Michael and I was her caretaker, her butler. And it was such a great experience working with Ellen Burstyn, who I just loved, who was phenomenal. Robin Wright, who scared me to death, not as a human being, but her character she was more vicious than Kevin Spacey's character. She was really the most vindictive. He was as well, but she topped him. But it was just great. Yeah, so the 15th audition is when I booked a recurring role.
So we've mentioned the Quick Tips channel and the workshops and the 2 books. Tell people one more time where they can go to find more information about all of these things. Hit me with your website.
Yeah, here's the simplest way to get to all these things. Just go to, and it just spell it out, howtoactandmodel.com. Or if that's too long for you, just go to howtomodel.com, and that will take you to the same place. Go there. You can read about my private coaching sessions, about the Quick Tips channel on YouTube, my workshops. And if you have questions for me, I make myself very available to people because I know how difficult it is to get started. So there's a contact tab. Just click on that and shoot me an email. Say you heard me, Fascination Street podcast, and I will prioritize your email and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. I'm not that smart, so I can't guarantee I can answer your question, but I'll do my best to try and answer it for you.
That is fantastic. I can't remember where it was, but there was a movie called A Man Called Ova, and Tom Hanks redid it. It's A Man Called Otto. You were in this film. Tell me something super cool that Tom Hanks told you on the set.
Yeah, he is such a great person. Besides the fact that in the scene, no spoiler alert, the movie's been out for a little while, he does save me from getting run over by a train, which was very nice.
Oh my goodness, thank gosh.
Yeah, it was close. Very, very close. Although I did the stunt, which was pretty wild. And that's a whole other story. But let me just tell you one thing that Tom Hanks said to me that I will never forget, and I love sharing because I think it's so important for people to hear and fascinating for people to hear. I have learned that when you're on a set, everything starts at the top, the whole atmosphere of the set. And if you have, especially in a film, if you have a director who's kind of nasty, the first first assistant director is going to be nasty. The director, you know what's happening there. Even the PAs, production assistants who are at the bottom of the list, they're the ones who are grabbing coffee and, telling the extras where to go. They're going to be nasty. Everybody was so nice on this set. It was such a warm, friendly, it was just a great place to work. They shot it in Pittsburgh. It was cold. My face is planked down in the snow. My clothes are wet. And I didn't care because something that Tom Hanks said to me was when I thanked him for creating such a warm atmosphere on this set. And I was just so appreciative. And he looked at me and he said, Aaron, we're all on the same team here. We're all trying to make something great. And it just hit me. And he was right. We are all trying to help each other do whatever we can. So if it means me having my clothes wet while I'm, lying face down on train tracks in the snow, it doesn't matter because that's our goal. And we're all here, whether it's, the star, whether it's the crew, whether it's craft services people who hand out all the goodies and get you heavy because you're eating snacks all day, or the extras, it doesn't make any difference. That is the story that I loved with Tom Hanks, who was just so wonderful. And I got a chance to spend a few days with him. He was just an amazing person, as well as his wife, Rita Wilson. She was one of the producers. I think she wrote some of the music for this one too. And I'll never forget, there was like a week delay we had to reshoot a scene. And when I saw her a week later, she walked over to me and she said, hey, you doing okay after the fall? And because it was like an 8-foot drop on the train track. So look, she's a producer and she's walking over, asking me how I'm doing. I just thought it was really sweet. So that's my Tom Hanks.
You hear that, Tommy Lee Jones? Everybody in Hollywood doesn't have to be a wolf. Now, Aaron, Tommy Lee Jones lives here in San Antonio, and I have a little bit of a personal vendetta against that fool because he's such a kid. So every chance I get, I like to just throw him under the metaphorical train tracks. Aaron, can you tell everybody where they can find you on social media?
Yeah, so it's really easy. Aaron, Aaron, R for Robert, Marcus, Marcus. So you can follow me on Instagram, where I also have a lot of videos on, well, what was Twitter, X, LinkedIn. It's all Aaron R. Marcus. And on Facebook, the simplest one, Facebook.com/howtomodel.
Oh, okay.
Something I created a long time ago. And you can get to me through howtomodel.com, the website. I have the links there as well.
Fantastic. Aaron, as we're heading out, is there anything that we didn't talk about or I didn't ask you about specifically that you wanted to talk about today? Like, did we cover all the big bits?
We did. And by the way, this was great. I really, really have enjoyed myself. And if you ever want take two, more than happy to come back, share more stories, more information. This is fun for me. Also, I just love the feel of everything here, and your questions are great. I guess the only thing I just want to say, and it's really easy in our industry to take things personally, because every time we do an audition and we don't book it, and I can tell you, most of the auditions that I do, I'm not going to get. I mean, I just auditioned for a TV show yesterday. I'm not going to get it. I know I'm not going to get it. And it's not because I think I'm horrible. It's just, I understand the industry. I thought the audition was fine, but do I fit the wardrobe the best? Probably not. There's probably somebody else who does. So here's the one thing, because this took me a long time to learn, and it can be really damaging to a lot of people, their mental health. You can't take anything personally in this industry. When somebody says, no, you're not getting the booking, and by the way, they typically don't tell you, but when you don't get the job, that is not any kind of statement about who you are as a human being, who you are as a person. If you are a nice person, you're still a nice person, whether you book the job or have success or not. So please just understand that there's nothing personal here. These are all business decisions, and that's it. When I go into an audition, I never think I'm going to book a job. Never. And once again, it's not because I think I'm horrible. It's just I know the realities. And so my goal for every audition is to have a good time. That's my goal. It's a Friday afternoon. I get a chance to play for 3 minutes. That's fun. And that's it. That's my number one goal for every audition. I don't even think about booking the job. So I hope that's something that fascinates people and that they enjoy.
At the end of the day, at the heart of the matter, you are a self-employed person. And I own a self-employed business. It's the kind of business where people call me and ask me for a price, and then I give them a price. And if they like that price, we do business. If they don't, we don't do that business. Batting average for most self-employed people is roughly not good. So much like acting, in most self-employed, especially service-oriented businesses, you're going to not get more than you do as far as landing those jobs. And as far as you deciding that you're there to have a good time, that's kind of how my partner and I structured our business at the very beginning. When we were trying to figure out pricing, we were like, we don't know anything about pricing for this business. So what we decided was we are going to settle on a number. It's different for every job, but we're going to settle on a number where the entire time we're there, we're not going to be pissed off. I love that your attitude going in is, I'm going there to have a good time, and then they're going to pay me. So that's what my partner and I do. We show up and we do our thing. And the entire time we're there, we're in a good mood, because that's how we priced that job, or we geared our business or whatever. So I love what you said right there at the end. That's fantastic. That's a great tip.
Well, and just to kind of add to what you were saying, which I really like, that is the exact reason why if we are having, some work done to our house, I don't negotiate. Never negotiate with somebody. They're going to give me a price. If it's something that I feel like it's something that's fair, something that I'm comfortable with, I just say, great, because I don't want to negotiate and save a little bit of money and have somebody upset. I know this can go on forever. I just turned down an audition.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you. And that's hard. And that's kind of new for me. I turned down the audition, not because of the content or anything. It was because it was a very low budget project. It was a union project. It was a very low budget project, which paid so much less than a regular feature film. They were shooting it in Atlanta, which is 11 hours away from me, if I was driving it. And I would have to get booked as a local, which means I'm putting myself up in hotels. I'm paying for my meals off the set, paying for gas. And I didn't want to do it. And it was a lot of dialogue. So I'd be spending a lot of time with this. So exactly with what you were saying, I wouldn't be happy. And I don't want to go into a situation where I'm not happy. And this is new for me, but I am starting to get a little bit more selective with that. So anyhow, I really appreciate what you said about that.
Yeah, I love it because it doesn't really matter what the industry is. It doesn't matter if you're self-employed or if you're employed by someone else. If you're miserable and they're miserable, that's not going to be good for anybody, man.
Not a good combination.
All right. Aaron Marcus. Oh, my goodness. This guy, star of all the things and writer of all the books and giver of all the tips. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy day and your hectic booking all of those commercial and television projects scheduled to hang out and let us get to know you a little bit better on Fascination Street, man. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Steve. This was really a lot of fun for me. I appreciate it.
It was 100% my pleasure, and you have a great rest of your week.
Great. And Steve, once again, I love the way you do this. It's just wonderful. It really is. You make people feel very comfortable. You make me, I shouldn't say people, you make me feel very comfortable, love your humor, love your questions. I just want to give, with the way you're presenting it. And so I hope people learn from today's interview.
People will love it. You are a gem and a font of information, as we say in the business. I don't know what business that is, but there we go. Thank you, Aaron.
Thanks. See you, man.
Bye.
Bye.
Opening music is the song FSP Theme, written, performed, and provided by Ambush Venn.
Closing music is from the song Say My Name off the 2021 album Underdog Anthems, used with permission from Jax Hollow. If you like the show, tell a friend, subscribe, and rate and review the show on iTunes and wherever else you download podcasts. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. All the episodes are available there as well. Check me out on Vero at Fascination Street Pod and TikTok at Fascination Street Pod. And again, thanks for listening.